Hello, welcome back to my channel where today I'll be making a Snow Miku cosplay. So Miku has a lot of different outfits, she's had different outfits since her conception, but I really wanted to do Snow Miku even though it's the middle of summer, mainly because I had a really nice white and silver fabric left in my fabric stash, which went perfectly with this outfit, so it was kind of a no-brainer. But I didn't want to make an exact copy of her outfit, so I started out by designing what I wanted to do. In short, I wanted a very cartoony 2D look to the cosplay, as well as making it a little bit more comfortable for myself to wear, so short hair and shorts instead of a skirt. And what you see here is pretty much the final result, so we're going to move straight on to doing the work. So I started out the making of this cosplay by making a pattern for the top half of the outfit. So for this I used some pattern fabric, just very cheap fabric that I had laying around, and a t-shirt that fits me very well, because I knew I wanted this to be quite a tight fitting top, and the best way to make sure it would actually fit me was to use some clothing that I already think fits me quite nicely. You'll see here that I'm not really giving much seam allowance to this. That is because I'm planning to put panels down the side to make it a little bit bigger, rather than just having two pieces, because I felt like it would look a little bit flat if I did it like that, and I really wanted that exaggerated cartoony flick to the bottom of the t-shirt, and I felt like the best way to achieve that was by using 4 panels for the top. I don't really have exact instructions for this section, as kind of just going off of instinct and just seeing what would work as I was going along. My best advice would be to make a mock-up first, which is what I'm doing here obviously, because it really saves you wasting loads of fabric, and I didn't have that much white fabric left over, so I really didn't want to waste any of it. With the pattern all made and it was fitting me correctly, I moved on to cutting out the actual pieces of the fabric. For this I used a very fancy white fabric that I had left over from my Barbie cosplay from years ago. For this cosplay I really didn't want to buy any new fabric, I wanted to use stuff I'd already owned, and this fabric just so happened to be perfect for this. It has a very subtle flower pattern, which I think gives it a very wintry, high-class feel. I believe it's a wedding fabric, which is why it has such a fancy print on it, and I'm so glad I used it for this cosplay, because it's also nice and thick, meaning that it's not see-through and it holds its shape really well, so it works out really well for the shape I was going for and the tie that I made later on, whereas a thinner fabric wouldn't really fall in the same way and it wouldn't look anywhere near as good. To make fitting the top easier, I then put the zip onto the back. For this I just cut the piece of fabric down the middle and I used bias binding up the sides just to make it look nice and neat, and then I sewed the zipper very simply into place. The reason this helps with fitting is that you can do it up, fit everything else nice and tightly to your body, and then get out of it really easily without having to take out any of the pins. So it's a really good sewing hack to use. I didn't actually film any of the fitting, but this is the section after fitting it, where I went in and sewed all the pieces together. This was a very nice and easy process. I was very excited to be using my new machine as well, because this is the first project I did on it. I think you've seen it on my YouTube channel before this video, but for me this was the first time using it and I really like this machine. It's really nice having a new machine that works really well. It's very swift, very easy to set up, and it doesn't keep jamming all the time, so it's wonderful. This is the t-shirt straight out of being sewn together. It wasn't falling in the correct way, but I was hoping that the bias binding was going to save it, so I moved on to the next step, which was of course sewing the bias binding all the way around the bottom of it. This was a very satisfying process to do. It took forever to kind of set it up because I had to iron the bias binding into that shape and then I had to pin it all in place, but sewing it all down was very satisfying for me, and it's also really nice on film because I got a nice long shot of the whole of the bottom of the t-shirt, and I just think it makes it look very fancy and very cartoony in the end. I'm very glad I made this choice. Moving on up to the collar, for this I just pinned a piece of fabric into place and I just cut out the shape directly onto the fabric because I didn't really know how else to make the collar. This just made it so much simpler and easy for me. It's not a proper collar because it doesn't have a fold in it. It is just directly sewn onto the t-shirt, but I think for a cartoon cosplay look it works fine. If I wanted to do a proper collar at some point I'd have to use a pattern, I believe, because I really don't understand how they work. I'm sure they're not as complicated as they are in my head, but for me personally, looking at a collar I don't quite understand how you're meant to sew it and make it look neat because I don't know how to fold it properly where the ends go inside the fabric. So I just did it this way and I'm really glad I did because I feel like it looks very neat and tidy and it really matches the feel of the rest of the outfit. Next I moved on to making the tie. I wanted to do this in a very simple way, so I just drew it out onto a flat piece of fabric and then used the bias binding again all the way around the edges to make it look like a proper tie. It doesn't work like a tie, it is just a flat tie, but I felt like that would work much better for this type of look because if it was a proper tie it wouldn't look as cartoony or 2D as the rest of the outfit, so I felt like this was the correct choice to make. And this is the top all finished. I really like the shape of it. It was so exaggerated, it was exactly what I wanted it to be. It also stayed in that shape perfectly without boning. If it didn't work I was going to have to put boning in it, and I was so glad I didn't have to do that. So for the shorts, I kind of started out the exact same way I did for the top, which was lay down a pair of shorts I already knew I liked the fit of, and then tracing them onto the fabric I was going to use. For this, I decided to go straight onto my actual fabric. One, because I didn't have enough of my cheap fabric left over, and two, I've made shorts quite a lot, so I knew they were going to go okay. And I didn't feel the need to make more shorts patterns. I have so many tucked away in the bottom of my sewing drawer, it's too many. After cutting all the pieces out, I sewed them all together. Very easy process. You just go down the 4 lines and join up the crotch, and then you have a pair of shorts. Next step is moving on to the waistband. As you can see from the sketch I made up before, I wanted to kind of have a V-shaped waistband. I thought it would just look quite cute. Not that it ends up being seen in the final cosplay, but I do like that it's there. It makes the shorts feel a little bit more professional. But I just cut this out the same fabric again, not really patterning anything, kind of just hoping for the best, and it did work out quite well. It was quite fiddly though, so I wouldn't really recommend doing it this way. There must be a better way of doing it, but I'm not really sure how to do that. But this way worked out absolutely fine. It's just a little bit annoying to do. To keep the shorts up around my waist, I just wanted to add a tie onto the inside of the waistband, so I just used a seam ripper on one of the sides so I could feed it through, and then I put it on the inside so I could tie it up without it being seen. The final step was to add the blue trimming around the bottom just so everything matched together and it really had that Snow Miku vibe. And these are the shorts all done. I am really happy with them. I feel like they suit me really well. I kind of want to make a pair of shorts that are exactly the same as this but more in my sort of colours, because I would definitely wear these out. Onto the arm cuffs, I used these 2 pieces of fabric that I cut out into shorts for a different project that I didn't end up using, and I just made them into long cone shapes and then did the same trimming around them. Very simple process. I was going to add elastic, but I felt like if I just made them tight enough I wouldn't need that, so I just made them tight enough to stay on my arms without cutting off the circulation. So really annoyingly, I didn't hit record when I was doing the wig, but luckily I didn't do much styling on it. I basically just made the pointed fringe that she always has, and then I glued some of the hair back a little bit so it wasn't falling in my face. I just used PVA glue for this because I saw someone do it on TikTok and it worked really well for them, so I thought I'd try it out on this wig because it's very cheap, and I really like it. I feel like I should have done this with my last cosplay wig, but at least I know now. I then attempted to make the cuffs that go around the pigtails. I tried 3 different methods. I only filmed 2 of them because I was getting very frustrated by the end. None of them worked, so I kind of just scrapped it, and maybe if I come back to this cosplay at some point I will try and work out a better way of doing that. But for now I'm just going to leave it out. I don't think they're that important to the overall look. For the makeup, I decided I wanted it to kind of match with my Gumi makeup. So I basically just did blue eyebrows, a blue kind of smoky eye, shimmer on the front of the eye, light blush over the nose, blush lips, and then a lot of highlighter. I think it looks really nice and it goes quite well with this character. I wanted it to be quite natural while still being really brightly coloured, and I think that's what this gives. And with that said, we're on to the final result. I really hope you like how this cosplay came out. I absolutely adore it. I think it is really cool and it came out exactly how I wanted it to. But with that said, that is it for this video. If you did enjoy it, please give it a like down below. Comment what else you'd like me to do. And subscribe as I'm posting 3 times a week for the rest of the summer, and I'd love to see you again. But until then, bye!